Welcome back to Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller, and I'm thrilled to have as our guest today Craig Huse, the CEO of the Hughes Culinary Group, headquartered out of my hometown, Indianapolis, Indiana. I got to read this piece because Craig's accomplished so much. Craig leads the group of 4 concepts, I think 8 locations. We'll get to all that here in a little bit. That generates wealth north of $70 million and leads the St. Elmo Foods Group as well, which is a retail division that sells sauces, including St. Elmo famous shrimp cocktail sauce and seasonings. In addition, Craig has just launched an RTD St. Elmo Colas a couple of years ago, has the Rare Saint whiskeys, and will eventually launch into a full-fledged distillery. St. Elmo is also a James Beard Award winner and is a top 20 grossing restaurant in the United States of America. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Hey, Bert. Pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Craig's a real underachiever, as you guys can probably tell, and the way it all started, we had to go back to the beginning. He started washing dishes at his father's restaurant. So walk me through how that time when you were 13, 14, whatever age you were when you started washing dishes and how it's led to your path to today where, you run a very large restaurant group and obviously one of the most iconic restaurants in the United States.
Well, you got to start at the bottom when you start in the restaurant business. And fortunately, our industry affords that. There's so many of us that started somewhere in the restaurant business, whether it was quick service or fine dining or anything in between. And I got exposure to that at a young age. I was a freshman in high school, 14 years old. And my dad had purchased a restaurant in Bloomington, Indiana, was about to convert it over to his own brand. But I started at the pre-existing brand called Poor Richard's Restaurant and washed dishes for like 7 or 8 months before ultimately moving through most all the positions over the course of my high school career and college career, line cook and prep and host and server and, everything. So great exposure. And it's valuable as leaders, I guess, to have empathy and experience with every position in an organization. And so that's invaluable to me to have that. And I think people in our organization know that. And I've been on the dish tank, in the last 12 months. So it's not like you ever fully get out of it. Things pop up, things happen, and you find yourself pitching in and it's a hands-on industry.
It definitely is a hands-on industry. And, the irony of the entire thing is your first job was with your dad, Steven's restaurant in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where Indiana University is. And yet you end up as a Nittany Lion at Penn State, another Big Ten school. So interesting that you walked out of Bloomington and went straight to State College.
I always joke that the local police force wanted to ask me to give them a break. My probation officer and the local force said, "Why don't you leave town for 4 years?" But no, I was a pretty good kid. At least never got caught.
Yeah.
So I did have after 4 years of working in the restaurant during high school, and then applying and getting accepted to Penn State University's School of Hospitality Management, I had a pretty good idea as I was looking for colleges that I would end up back in the restaurant business from that time, washing dishes at 14 and moving forward. So I thought I better take a 4-year opportunity to get out of the state of Indiana for a little bit. And that's true. And I had a great experience at Penn State University. I still stay pretty connected with them. I just had James Franklin, the head coach, was in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago for the Big Ten Football Media Day, and I got to have dinner with him. He FaceTimed my son, who's a huge Penn State fan, 17-year-old. So it's cool when you can, you have all these experiences and you create these networks in life, and you can keep connected with them. So I really focus on that. I was back in Bloomington just a week ago. I'm going to be at Penn State here for the IU game later in the season, and it's just where we've all been, what we've all participated in and learned. It's really important, I think, to keep those connections alive.
Let's stay with that. Coach Franklin and other celebrities. Obviously, celebrities around the world have visited your restaurants, and of course, St. Elmo being the institution that they frequent the most. But can you just help me understand? Obviously, you've had dignitaries, you've had athletes, you've had all kinds of people run through your restaurant, but there's got to be one, at least for you, that came in that you just go, man, that's really damn cool. Who's the one that stands out to you out of all of them?
I mean, I'd love to have a sitting president come in, but we haven't had that happen yet. But I tend not to get wrapped up into the celebrity starstruckness. There's photos all over the walls of St. Elmo, which you talked about in 1902 steakhouse. It attracts a lot of them. Because every city kind of has that iconic old restaurant and that survived over times and become so closely associated with the city. And so we do get them to pop in. The one, I don't know, the one that I guess I'm not starstruck from, but the one that I respect and enjoy having in the restaurant the most is Peyton Manning. He's spent 14 years of his football career here and really made himself a friend to the restaurant, to the staff, to myself. And, the hospitality that we extended to him, I think might have been exceeded by his hospitality that he reflected back on all of us. And so I think his popularity has only grown over time and just an amazing Hall of Fame football player, but an even better person. And in fact, he was just in the restaurant last night. So it's still coming in, even from Denver.
Well, that's fantastic. And he's also taken a new role as a prof at the University of Tennessee. So I guess he's going to start teaching school as well. Okay, so I mentioned early on you have 4 concepts. I think 4. So I want to make sure we get the numbers right. I think 4 concepts and 8 different locations. Am I accurate with that?
You're right on the concepts. We have 6 locations, 4 concepts. It's all started with St. Elmo Steakhouse in downtown Indianapolis, and then from that we opened up an American Grill restaurant called Harry and Izzy's, and we have 3 locations of Harry and Izzy's. And then in Fishers, Indiana, which is a suburb of Indianapolis, we have a restaurant called the 8C Tavern and Kitchen, as well as the 1933 Lounge. We have a couple of restaurants under development. So hopefully in the next year we'll be up to 8, but right now it's 6, Bert.
Yeah, outstanding. And what's nice about downtown Indianapolis is you go upstairs and you can have dinner, then you can go upstairs and spend some time at the 1933 Lounge, which is fantastic. What's interesting, I've been to your restaurants many, many times, and I have seen them evolve over the years. And what I'm fascinated about is the way your team works together and the energy that you get when you come into your place. And it doesn't matter if it's in hospitality, or if it's in a beverage company, or if it's in some manufacturing company. There's this collective thing of really having and providing a vision and giving your team a mission. What is your North Star, and how do you get your team really to, you have several hundred employees, I would imagine, or how do you get them to follow you through that?
Yeah. Well, you talked about that energy, and I'll connect 2 points on that. That's a flywheel. I think the energy comes from the guests and the vibe that they create, and it just starts circulating throughout the restaurant with the staff and the guest interaction, and it just becomes a buzz. But yeah, I think our North Star, if you're going to point to the top of the flywheel, is our ultimate goal is we entertain and delight the public. And we do that while we inspire our team. And if we can do that, then that flywheel really starts moving. And that's through building the brand and the frequency and investing back into the staff. We call ourselves stewards of the restaurant. And that stewardship is really important to us it was an easy launch point to consider ourselves stewards because the restaurant opened in 1902, St. Elmo did. And so it was here long before my dad or myself or any of the employees that are there now. And so we're really stewarding St. Elmo through a period of time, and we want to leave it in a better place than we found it. And so we do all view ourselves as stewards of that restaurant. And we've kind of grown that stewardship concept to the entire restaurant group.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I love the history of the restaurant. You have, the iconic long bar when people walk in, the dark wood and all the things that go along with that restaurant. You guys acquired St. Elmo when?
1986.
86.
So I was 16. That was my dad, and he was in quick service business with Arby's franchises, and he started a pizza group called No Roman's Pizza that went public, and I think grew to 120 some units while he was their CEO, and then he sold that the same year he bought St. Elmo. So in 1986.
Well, what a rich history the Huse family has in hospitality. So, all right, staying with St. Elmo, for example, there is the famous shrimp cocktail. Everybody tries to emulate and create the sauce and the heat, and they always overdo it. I've had many shrimp cocktails across a multitude of restaurants, and some of the local ones try to replicate what you're doing. What do you do different? Why is that shrimp cocktail just so? It's so obvious when you take the bite. When somebody has a certain drink, what that drink is. When you have a shrimp and cocktail sauce at St. Elmo, you know exactly what it is.
You just want me to give out the trade secrets? Huh?
No, don't do that.
You have the CEO of Coca-Cola, and you ask him what the secret ingredient is.
Don't do that. But it is special. It's a very special appetizer, no doubt.
It's so unorthodox. I think lots of restaurants have shrimp cocktails, like you mentioned, and certainly steakhouses do. Ours is different in the way that the founder of the restaurant, Joe Starr, made it with a ton of fresh ground horseradish, and he just went extreme, and so it pops people. It's also got 4 great black tiger shrimp in there, which I think have a great snap and bite and texture, but we also ladle that sauce that we prepare throughout the day. We grind it daily. We small batch it throughout the dinner shift as well. And we just pour it right over the top of the shrimp. So it doesn't even look like a traditional shrimp cocktail sauce. It just looks like a sorbet bowl full of cocktail sauce that's borderline red to pink, depending on the horseradish. So anyway, people have to really fight their way to get to the shrimp. You got to get some of the sauce loaded up, and the reactions are priceless when you sit in the restaurant, and guests love to look around to see other guests enjoying the shrimp cocktail. It's the only appetizer on our dinner menu too, which is very unique. And about 2/3 of our guests order one. So it's just, it's one of those iconic items. And, I think it gives the restaurant wonderful identity. And that's, I think any brand or any organization needs to have a clear identity of who they are. And traditional steakhouses are successful for that. They have a very, very clear identity. People know what they're going to experience from a ambiance and all to the menu and everything. So that's one of the reasons I think steakhouses are successful generally. But and then within that, we just kept that menu really narrow and traditional, and that one signature St. Elmo Steakhouse shrimp cocktail.
Yeah, you'll see that occasionally on game day, and when the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis, it kind of showed up for the announcers for the Super Bowl way back then. And it is entertaining to see somebody take that first bite that's never had it. You just kind of want to keep your mouth shut and just kind of watch the happen. It's like a little car wreck, but it's the most fantastic shrimp cocktail you're ever going to have, and I really enjoy having it. Which leads me to, it's so famous that you guys created a contest, right? Where Joey Chestnut, who is the Nathan's hot dog eating winner, also has won the eating contest with the St. Elmo shrimp cocktail. Now, I'm just curious. I've actually attended, so I'm just curious though, how many pounds in what period of time because he's tended to win. He's won every year, right? Correct?
He has not won every year.
Oh, he's not.
He's been upset. And definitely the last year that we held it, he was upset, even though he came back and won the Nathan's hot dog eating contest a few months after that. But I think he's won it all but 1 or 2 years. And Joey Chestnut is just a machine. You know, they call him Joey Jaws because he can, chew up anything that's in his mouth and digest it. And he's a engineer by trade, and so he really approaches this competition with a kind of scientific engineering mind process approach. And anyway, he ate 18 pounds 9 ounces back in 2018 in 8 minutes. So it's impressive and obnoxious all at the same time. I don't know how to describe it, but it's not pretty. And the only reason we did the contest, Bert, was because Indianapolis picked up the Big Ten championship football game as a host city. And the organizers, Indiana Sports Corp and local community, wanted to kind of surround that event with other entertainment and to just kind of leverage and magnify the game day weekend. So they came to us like 2 or 3 weeks before the game on the first year that we were hosting it. It was kind of a late blooming idea. And I said, I didn't have time to think about it. I said, all right, well, we were proud to be part of the Indianapolis community. You're making an ask. We'll do what we can to help support it. And then it just kind of grew from there. And now Joey lives in Indianapolis. He's moved from California because he loves the community so much. And he's become more than a friend to the restaurant.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you think about that, almost 19 pounds. So for the listeners out there, you think about picking up a 20-pound dumbbell basically, and he's doing just under that. He's doing that in 8 minutes.
You know what's even more amazing than that is he does not experience any kind of reversal even after the contest. And after he goes back to the hotel real quick to shower, he's still, looks like a boa constrictor that swallowed something large, but still, he goes out and has cocktails with all of us, and goes to the game. And I usually share a suite for the Big Ten championship game, and he's a guest. He's in town, and then we do like a little beer chugging contest in the suite, and and I always have to make sure there's hot dogs in the suite. And we'll do one hot dog race, and he does all this after he's already competed with the shrimp cocktail contest earlier in the day. So he's a freak of nature.
Yeah, he is a freak of nature, and there's some people out there probably laughing, others probably half disgusted, and others probably getting sick as they hear this story. But it is, I have attended, and it is pretty amazing about what he did. Now, what I've always enjoyed about you, Craig, is your humility and the way you approach the community, people like me and all your other customers that have come into your restaurants. And I think it's certainly been validated through the success that the Hughes Culinary Group has had across all their concepts. But in addition to that, you have launched sauces and then seasonings and to retail or you got to walk us through that a little bit, because it went from just somebody getting the cocktail sauce and you bottling it, and you went to a few places like Marsh way back in the day, which probably not many people on here is going to know what that is. It was a local grocery store chain, but it's gone from there to now you're in multiple states, and it's led you to creating a retail or St. Elmo Foods division that is continuing to grow, not only with the sauces and the seasonings and everything else, but then you launched an RTD with the cola and bourbon, then you launched a bourbon, and now you're considering and opening up your distillery. You got to walk me through this other part of your life and business, because I think that's fascinating and very entrepreneurial.
Well, thank you. It's an organic growth. I think when you have an item that people talk about all the time, it just makes sense to say, hey, if I could put this in a bottle, we did, and it was a challenge in R&D take something that is so spicy, and when mixed with other ingredients, that spice tends to go down. And so we had to supplement it with natural horseradish extract and make the preparation different to have it be on the shelf with a 6 to 7 month expiration date. So, but we had to challenge ourselves to do it because it just was such a popular product. And so we got it launched in, like you said, local market. And then it grew outside. I'm not even sure how many states we're in, but we're probably in 20 or 30 states with different brands now. It's less controlled, obviously, than liquor business. Things can cross state lines without me even knowing it sometimes. But and then it just kind of, we were successful with one item, and then we added steak seasoning and prepared horseradish and other items. And once you get a sales team put in place, which you helped, Bert, you helped install some of our people, find them and build our team. And they're really good at what they do, and so you got to give them more, and that's the part of any organization. In order to keep or attract and retain good people, you got to have some growth in your company. You just can't be stagnant, or those people will go to other organizations that are growing. So that's always been our approach. It's been very intentional growth. It's been slow and steady kind of wins the race. And it was great to do the retail piece because it was a lot less capital intensive. When we open up a new restaurant, it's like $6 million to kind of build out a restaurant of the kind of caliber that we want to put forward to the guest. And this was a brand extension that we could do without as much labor and without as much capital. And then when we really realized it was a huge asset to us was when COVID happened in 2020. And then, our restaurants are shut down, and the only, where were people, what business went up really high were liquor stores and grocery stores. So that really helped kind of create some diversity in our product offerings and our revenue streams. So I was glad to have that brand extension during COVID.
Yeah, and we talked earlier in the year, and certainly that point in time was it was an interesting time for everybody, obviously from a global perspective, but for those that were prepared, particularly from an e-com perspective and able to get products in people's hands, they're the ones that succeeded. The other thing off of that too is the distilled spirit. Obviously you're creating a whiskey, and you have the bourbon that you've created as well. Are you're considering having a distillery? Tell me a little bit about that.
We are. I always say the hard part is finding a home for your product and selling it, and so we have a St. Elmo whiskey that was born out of the restaurant. We have a signature cocktail called Elmo Cola that when we first started preparing it in the restaurant 15 years ago, it was made with Maker's Mark, and we infused the Maker's Mark bourbon with Luxardo cherries and some some vanilla bean, whole vanilla beans, and just similar to like what you see in other steakhouses with vodka and pineapple or whatever, an infused cocktail. But being a classic steakhouse, we wanted to go in a darker direction, more masculine kind of cocktail. So we chose a whiskey based cocktail to have our first signature cocktail. And it's our number one selling cocktail in the restaurant. So just like that St. Elmo shrimp cocktail sauce, let's go and try it out in the market. And we did that, and then realized really great sales. I mean, we sold 15,000 cases of that in a year. And so then we're like, how can we start taking back some of the processes to make it a more genuine product? And so now we have our own bottling facility. We have, I think, 2,000 plus barrels under ownership. But at some point we'd like to distill our own spirits and put our own juice in the barrel, so to speak. So that's kind of on our radar to do next, and we're just kind of slowly peeling it back and taking back some of the processes, and I think it's a good way to grow your business and a safe way to grow your business versus going out and building a distillery and hoping that you've got a sales stream coming forward. We kind of reverse ordered it.
Yeah, when I think about Beyond the Bottom Line and doing this podcast, we've had the Coca-Colas and the General Motors and the Chris Vosses and other entrepreneurs, and then I think about what you have created with you and your team and your family. And now you're moving into retail, and now you're moving into distillery. It certainly it's fascinating just to watch people become an entrepreneur, and I think we need people like that creating businesses, creating jobs, and not only that, but doing it in a way that's creating great products that have integrity behind them. And I really, really appreciate about what you've done there, Craig. I have to ask you this question because I ask most everybody on this show, and we usually have more than one person that influences our life, but there's a singular individual that probably stands out that is, as you're coming through, and you knew early where you were probably headed, but maybe not for sure. But those various inflection points in our lives and in our professional career that really influenced and put you where you are today, where you're leading so many people in your organization with unbelievable tenure, by the way. Who's that person for you?
100% it's my dad. I mean, that gave me the opportunity to see what an entrepreneur is and how they behave and how they treat people within the organization, to give me a chance to work in a fast-paced kitchen at the age of 14, which I wouldn't have been able to do probably without without it being a family business. I probably had to wait till I was 16. And I learned so much from him, and he is and always was more of a business person in the restaurant industry. And so I got to be more the restaurant person within his business, and that was a really good marriage. Not that he doesn't have an eye and a taste and an ability to design menus and food products and things like that. He certainly does, but he was kind of the big picture business entrepreneurial minded person. And for me to grow up in restaurants at a young age and go to hospitality management school, and I think that was a really good marriage. And then to have somebody that we each other trust so much is important too. And so he's my definitely my inspiration and best friend, and has guided me a lot, and even allowed me just to kind of learn within his organization on my own. I mean, it wasn't like I was shadowing him. He was always so many levels above me when I was learning. And then he did, I think a lot of entrepreneurial families, they want their kids to work for somebody else too. And so, I went to work with Hillstone Restaurant Group, Houston's brand, out of college for a few years. And, I really got great training in that. Family businesses sometimes don't really pay a lot of attention to training, especially like emerging brand family businesses. And so that was I always call it's kind of like my MBA in the restaurant business, is working with Hillstone restaurants. So long answer, but definitely Steve Huse, my dad, is my professional hero.
Yeah, well, I believe I knew the answer. I just wanted to hear what your story behind it, and that is outstanding. And the one thing I want to close the show out with, because companies can, regardless of what industry people are in, leadership is leadership. And one of the things, and let's pick the categories of your waiters and your leadership team. You have significant tenure. You don't need to be exact, but obviously significant tenure in your organization, which is so unusual in the hospitality industry. And I feel I know why, but I'd really love to hear from you how you've been able to cultivate. You mentioned earlier they need to continue to grow and be part of a growing organization, but there's other things that go into that. how do you cultivate their skill set where you meet their personal scorecard and they enjoy what they do day in, day out for several years at a time, to the point that some of it even retired as employees of the Hughes Culinary Group. Walk me through that, because that's tremendous leadership.
We certainly create a lot of stability in the workforce just by being owner operated. People in our industry, I think, crave that interaction and not feeling like they're working for someone. We work together, and that's really important. And that was easily adapted from Harry and Izzy that operated St. Elmo from 47 to 86. So there's a lot of stability, and stability breeds stability. We lean into them. We try to treat our organization as a really large organization as far as what we provide for our employees. Like you do questionnaires and solicit feedback. Everybody wants that independent company to be affiliated with, but then the specific things that people want sound very corporate as far as communications and benefits and processes and training and things like that. So we try to bridge that independent-minded restaurant company with some of the processes. We have Leanna Croman in our organization. She's vice president of culture and learning. So I'm in a 6-restaurant group, trying to kind of surround our team with some talent and support that they might not normally get in other organizations. I think certainly helps. And you got to allow your people to make money too, ultimately, right? And so when you combine high volume and high check average, it creates a great earning opportunity for people in the hospitality. You got to have both. And so we let them do their thing. We treat some of the talent, like our talent, as independent contractors. They have their own. We provide them with business cards and develop their book of business, and we give them some real estate in a really classic, cool steakhouse setting or American Grill setting, and they're really their own operator within that 4 or 5 table area of real estate. So. I don't know. There's a lot of things that go on. It's a people business. And like you said, we have 830 employees. There's stewards for a 6-restaurant group, which seems crazy, but it takes a lot of hands to execute something that's so simple, really, but it just takes a lot of hands. And our corporate office, we have a wall of our, in the restaurants, we have walls of celebrities. In our corporate office, we have walls of our employee photos that you walk past when you come in. And I want that to be a reminder to everybody that works in this office and what we call the support office. We work for them. We're here to make their positions, their careers better. And if they do that and they extend grace and hospitality and kindness to the guest, then we have to do that to them, and we have to create that positive environment for the employees to pass that on and share it. So what's your take on it, Bert? You sit on the other side of the bar and the table.
All right, it's flipping the interview. No, I have to tell you, it all starts at the top, and it really, really does. And again, I mentioned the word humility earlier, and I think you have that, and just your response and the employees' pictures and at corporate and all that. It seems so simple, and I think so many companies and leaders could learn what you just said. But what I see from the outside when I walk in, people, number one, it starts with your selection, right? I mean, you attract, number one, and you are able to select people, and they select, Hughes Culinary Group as well. And then the consistency of the energy and passion and the way they treat people. There's something going on behind the scenes for training, obviously, because the discipline and the consistency that I see across whenever I'm in your group, your restaurant groups, the various restaurants, it's consistent across the board. So I enjoy that. And I think the other thing is when you see the passion, and what they do every single day. You've had the bartenders, most of them, forever. And they have the way they engage you when you walk in to, for example, St. Elmo, and then that tends to extend itself out into the waitstaff, into the restaurant, or high tops or wherever. That consistency tends to just be there. And then I think you also hit the nail on the head relative to continuity. Anything, whether it's a sports team or a business or a corporation, a manufacturing corporation, whatever the case may be, having that continuity with a common mission in mind tends to help the team member understand who they're a part of, so they feel part of something, and then where they're going. And I think you have really, really hit the nail on the head on that, and you guys at the Hughes Culinary Group have done that extremely well. It's obvious. It's very, very obvious.
Hopefully we built some trust and with that continuity, and then we have fun with stuff too. Now it's like, how do we lean into the success of retaining people, and then we just have fun ideas. We created a dining room called the Legends Room, and we have oil paintings of our 30-year or greater employees, stewards. So there's not a lot of restaurants that put photos or put oil paintings of their long-term stewards together. We put the name and the amount of years that people have worked with us on the back of the St. Elmo menu too, and I think guests are fascinated by that, and it gives a point of connection. And what's your name and where are you on this list? And they're proud to show people the back of the menu, and we have these bow ties, lapel pins that have years of service on it too, and so we just try to have fun with those type of things, and be creative and kind of lean into it, like I said.
No, you have, and I think it definitely shows, and so it's been. Thank you, by the way, for being on the show. It doesn't matter whether it's a CPG company or hospitality or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of people that actually get to see this when the podcast gets released, there's a lot of things that come out around certainly your leadership style, your approach, their thoughtfulness, and what you've done in order to build your business, especially with 800 plus employees, and thinking about them in various forms, not just in a practical matter of we should be doing this, but also in a fun matter, doing the oil paintings and things of that nature that make it really, really symbolic and fun for your team. And I think a lot of us could learn from you on that. So thanks for being on the show, Craig. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bert. Great to be here, and I look forward to having an adult beverage with you here in Indianapolis during the cold season.
I look forward to it. This is Beyond the Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bert Miller, and we'll see you next time. I appreciate it.